Days of a lot of explanations. We're doing Torah Ohr, Parshat Va'Yera, page 26 in the book, and in the booklet it's page number 4. What does it say? It says Patach Eliyahu. Eliyahu it starts with Shaykh LaPasuk Erdana. I think that the simple pshat over here, under the words Parshat Va'Yera, there's the word Shaykh LaPasuk Erdana.
Yeah.
So I think that the simple pshat is because the next mimer is Erdana, and actually the next mimer is a brilliant, who am I to say? But it's an unbelievable mimer where the Alter Rebbe talks about the Hasidic answer to the question, if God knows everything, how do we have free choice? That's something usually that, what?
Nice. Looking forward.
And
Let's dive into it.
but I think that you could say that it's in general connected to the pasuk Erdana, because in Erdana we see that God, in our mimer by itself, it's going to talk at the end of it's going to talk about the idea of Erdana. But basically, more in general, the idea of Erdana is God says, "Let me go down to Sodom and see." God says, "Let me go down to this world." So we see an interaction of God with this world. This leads us to a longer conversation. Is God in the world? Is God beyond the world? Is God Atzilus? Is God beyond Atzilus? And the way we also put it into a more modern context, does God really care or doesn't he care? So let's see inside. Patach Eliyahu. Patach Eliyahu, this is the Akdama to the Holy Book of Zohar, and in this chapter, we have all the greatest secrets of Kabbalah are found in this chapter. This chapter has an unbelievable power. Chabad custom is to say it every Friday before Mincha, and the custom is to say it every day before Mincha. Patach Eliyahu. Eliyahu opened. He started. And what did he say? He wants to explain the whole idea of Kabbalah with the different levels of how God interacts with the world. What does he say? Am tuchad, you're one, v'loi b'chushban. What does it mean, v'loi b'chushban? V'loi b'chushban means, and not in a numerical sense. You're not one of a series. When I say one, it's not 1, 2, 3. One, you're the only one. And who, you are the one that you are the one, the apikat that brought forth Eser Tikunin, the 10 Tikunin. In order to understand this, why do we call the 10 Sfirot with the name of adornment? We first have to proceed in Musa Nefesh. We have to understand how the soul works, how our psyche works. Why does Chassidus always use psyche as an example? Chassidus believes, based on the words of the Baal Shem Tov, that what does it mean, from my flesh I could see God? What is the simple meaning I could see flesh, from my flesh I could see God? From how brilliant my flesh works, how my eyes work, how my heart works, how my body works. Good morning, Rabbi. From that, I could see that there is a God. Yeah, that's the simple way of saying it. That's also the way they explain it in other schools of thought. Wow, look at your eyes, look at your heart. It's unbelievable how things work. Yeah. You see your flesh, you see that there is a God. The Baal Shem Tov came, and it's brought down in an epistle, Igeres HaKodesh, in the back of the Tanya, the 4th volume of Tanya, number 15. What does it say over there? In the name of the Baal Shem Tov, from my flesh I could see God. From knowing my flesh, I could know not that there is a God, I could know God himself, because we were created in his image. And if we were created in his image, so we could know from ourselves how God operates, so to say, how God is. So the truth is, even our body is set up. If you go to a Kabbalist, you'll say, what do you mean? Over here, in Patach Eliyahu by itself, our brain has 3 parts. Right hand is Chesed, left hand is Gvura. The torso is. What is the torso? Tiferet. Netzach v'Hoid are the 2 feet. Yeah, Yisod, Malchus, speech. So basically, we are created in the image of God, and from our body we could know God. Chassidus took it to a whole new level. Chassidus says from our psychology we could know God. Since we were created in the image of God, from understanding how we operate, not exactly psychology, but from the anatomy of the soul, we could know God. So if we want to understand this whole thing, we want to talk about the nefesh itself. Just like in chapter 3 and 4 in Tanya, where in chapter 3 he talks about the faculties of the soul, and in chapter 4 he talks about the clothings of the soul. So too comes down to Rebbe over here and says, in order to understand this, Torah lahagdim bir in yimus hanefesh. Kihine hanefesh mitzad atzma, the nefesh from itself, meaning say by itself, he oir pashut is a simple light, bliss chalkus seichel umidas. What does Alter Rebbe say? That our soul is not a composite. Our soul is beyond having intellect and emotions. V'aseichel v'amidas shelo, and its intellect and emotions, hem bechinas levushim la'nefesh. They are merely like garments to the soul. Sha'nefesh, that the nefesh, yes, lo seichel umidas, that the nefesh has seichel umidas. Avol, but einon mohuz ve'atzmius hanefesh, but they are not the essence of the soul. Now, what is the first question that a chassid has to ask when he hears these words? In the Tanya, what does it say? That our nefesh, the 10 spheres are garments?
Adornment.
In the Tanya, it doesn't say adornments. Over here, it brings from the. But in the Tanya, our nefesh is the 10 sphirot, and in the 4th chapter, it talks about the garments.
The clothing, yeah.
What are the garments? Thought, speech, and action. Over here, the Alter Rebbe does a switcheroo on us. Not switcheroo. What does Alter Rebbe do? The Alter Rebbe over here says that the nefesh by itself has no faculties. The faculties are like garments. How does that work? Again, in the Tanya, our soul is 10 sphirot. Our garments are thought, speech, and action. Over here, he says that our soul is beyond the 10 sphirot, and the 10 sphirot are. The 10 sphirot are what? Our garments. So what does Alter Rebbe say? Mashakos of Betanya, what it says in the Tanya, or you could say even Mashakosafti Betanya, what I wrote in the Tanya. The nefesh by itself, the nefesh by itself is divided into intellect and emotions. That they are the essence of the soul. This is not Ella. Only relatively to thought, speech, and action. Shehem, that thought, speech, and action is levushim nifradim mamish imhus hanefesh. They, the thought, speech, and action, they are completely separate from the
Garment.
From the essence of the soul. Shehem b'chinas biyad, that they are in the level of Bria Yitzir Asiya. Like I explained this week, Bria Yitzir Asiya refers to already the creation of the world. It's not even talking about God anymore. It's talking how the creation starts. Shal Zeh Omar, on this he says later in the Zoyar, Levushin tekinas loin, you are the one that brought forth that you made. Tekinas means you instituted, you made Levushin clothing, the inun biyad, that is the worlds of the Yitzirasiyah. Avala seichel va'amidas, but intellect and emotions. Even though I just told you that the soul itself is beyond, and the 10 faculties are clothing, they're not really clothing. And this is actually what the whole mimer is going to be. They're not clothing, they're going to be adornments. But the first thing that Alter Rebbe wants to say, much before Einstein, it's all a matter of relativity. In the Tanya, I want to contrast it with thought, speech, and action. So I said that the spheres are a part of the person. Over here, I want to explain to you in relation to the essence of the soul. So, in relation to the essence of the soul, the 10 sphirot are merely levushim, garments. Let's see inside. We'll be up to. Oh. אבל אין מוזלת second. אבל השכל המידס, but השכל המידס, אם יושבים בכנס לבושים, אינם לבושים נפרדים ממש. They're not separate לבושים, אלא כמו בכנס כלים דאצילוס, just like the vessels of Atzilus. The Iyu v'gar moyu chad, where that's exactly the whole point of this mimer, that God and His kelim and His expressions are one. Lo nikroim b'shem atzmius, and they're not called essence. I'm sorry. The lochem mikroim, and therefore they're called atzmius. They're called the essence of the soul in the book of Tanya. But the loy atzmius mamish, they're not actually. Mamish is a hard word to translate into English, but it's not actually the essence. It's only relative. But that's exactly going to be what we discussed the whole week. That on one hand, it's not essence. It's just like garments, but these are garments that God unites himself with it. And what is the example for that? By a person? Adornment. A person, like a ring that you put on that you're married, is not a part of you, but you united yourself with it. It became you. It's a certain expression of your achievements. It's not over here in order to cover you or in order to give you over in a diluted version like thought, speech and action. Let's go. Elo says the Alter Rebbe, Shehem Nikroim. Would it help you if you guys read?
Yeah.
Elo, rather, yeah, Ezra? No?
No, I wouldn't, it'd be too slow.
Elo, rather, Shehem Nikroim, Shem Tikkunim. The 10 Sfirot, they are called Tikkunim. We close the window because this is making a lot of noise. Elo, rather, Shem Nikroim, Shem Tikkunim, they are called the dormant Shanefesh, that the soul mistakenes mislabeshes bohen. What? I know you could. What?
Sunny at this one.
Ah, well, the actual mimer.
Mm.
Very cool. I could send you a link there. They have the Torah Ohr with Nakudah.
Please. For me, even.
They work on it every year from anew, and then hopefully they'll print it in the book. So he puts out a new version every year. So it has a website. He works in it. It's actually very good that we should use that. Like this, we could also help him. It's a very special project. Elo shehem nikroim b'shem tikkunim. They are called adornment. Shanefesh mistakenes mislabeshes bohen. That the nefesh adores and dresses himself with that. I don't even know that my daughter was here, but the plugs are unplugged. Kamoishet translates our pasuk on the pasuk lo yilbash gever simlas isha, that a man should not wear woman's clothes. Lo yiskan gever betikunei itzasa. A man should not adore himself with the adornments of a woman. So what do we see? It's actually very interesting. It's also a beautiful example. The Alter Rebbe wants to know what is the meaning of the word tikkunim. What's the best way to know what the meaning of the word tikkunim is? You look at Targum, right? Because we know Hebrew better, and the Targum is a translation into Aramaic, right? So we want to find a place where it's not talking about clothing necessarily. We want to talk about a place that expresses who you are. So in the Torah, there's a prohibition of a man to wear woman's clothes. And there's a prohibition for a woman to wear men's clothes. Now, you tell me, when a man wears a woman's clothes, what is he trying to do? He's trying to cover himself up, or he's trying to say that he's a woman? He's trying to say that he's a woman. I know nowadays it's not so politically correct what I'm saying now, but we're saying a Torah prohibition. So the pasuk says, "Lo yilbash gever simlas isha veloy." Remember the pasuk? Okay, but basically what it says over here, a man should not wear the clothing of a woman. So what does it say over here in the Targum? The Targum is a very good translation. That's why it's so reliable, and there's a lot of halachas that we could learn from the Targum. Lo yiskan gever b'tikunei itza. A man should not adore himself with the adornments of a woman, because over there the point is not the person getting dressed up. The point is not just the covering. It's making a statement. A statement is already where you unite yourself with a statement. You're saying, I'm married, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a judge, I am a woman, I am a man. You get the idea, the difference? Thought, speech, and action is just a means of communication. It's also expression, but it's an expression that is very easy to change. It's not something. So you could say woman like this, woman like that. The idea of adornment, what's the idea of adornment? The idea of adornment is that you're saying over here a statement. That statement is...
It's an expression of the essence.
Exactly. It's the expression of the essence, where the essence has achieved something and has united himself with that idea. There's a lot of doctors, but if I became a doctor and I'm wearing a white cloak, I'm saying something more. It's like I have united with myself, and now I am a doctor. I'm not talking doctor language. I'm not doing doctor. I am doctor. You get the idea?
Yeah.
But that's. I don't want to go over like the whole thing that we said. That's the whole idea. On one hand, to be within, stay above. So are you the doctor? You are the doctor. You didn't come out of the box a doctor. You a lawyer? You didn't come out of the box a lawyer. No. Right. That's not who I am, but I chose to become.
Yeah.
It's a
went through a journey to take on adornment.
Exactly. But I chose it. And that is a very good formula for a lot of things in the world. It's like we spoke about child rearing, but it's also one of the examples that I maybe didn't get to is the idea that on one hand, Chassidus constantly tells us to be beyond the world. And on the other hand, Chassidus tells us what it means. And that's like a bit confusing, because in Chabad, if you're in the world, say, oh, what's going on? Well, it's like God sent you down to this world to make money and eat herring, like really? And if you like completely don't care and just want to sit in kotel and you don't care about your bills and like, well, let my wife go work. Who cares? Yeah. What do we tell them? Excuse me. I want to be an angel. God has enough angels in this world. God wants us to reveal godliness in the world. So you're doomed both ways. What is the answer? The answer is we have to be beyond the world, but we choose to go into the world. Where's the difference? The difference is you see who's in control of what. If because of the world you don't daven with a minion, if because of the world you don't learn everyday Torah, so you didn't choose the world chose you.
And you have to choose which adornment you put on yourself.
Exactly. The question is if you are beyond. So obviously when you work, you have to be in it. Let's say above. At the end is. It's a whole different perspective. It's like when you go and you eat ice cream. The ice cream chose you, or you chose the ice cream?
I chose that.
Sometimes we can't control ourselves, and then the ice cream chooses us.
Is going to talk about free will in this minor? Or is that
That's the next
one?
one.
Yeah.
Nice. But that's too hard of a mimer. My sister asked me this week if I learned it. She started teaching it by mistake, and said she started teaching and says, "Oh, Mayor, I don't know how to continue this. Could you save me?" I told her, "Listen, I don't know that mimer well. Can't save you."
Now I'm intrigued.
What?
Now I got intrigued.
No, it basically explains according to Chassidus that the God's knowledge is a way of in a way of makiv, and God's and us choosing is in a way of pnimi. Therefore, they don't contradict each other. Guys, I would rather not talk about things that I have no clue about. Let's go. the Indian tikkun, what is the idea of a tikkun? What is the idea of adornment? A jewelry, a tachshit, shemiskashit, the person adores himself with it. Umispoel mimenu. What does it mean, mispoel mimenu? And he gets affected by it. It's like, I'm a doctor now. I have to act like a doctor, right? Then the person becomes one with it, as if that would be a part of his body. Again, the ring of a person, or when a woman puts on a ring, I'm married, it's not like a clothing, okay, it goes on, it goes off. That ring, to a certain extent, guys, even when the ring goes off, it's still there. It's a part of my body. Talking about the marriage ring. Yeah. Just like the soul with the body. Even though the guf is only clothing for the nefesh gets affected from what happens to the guf, right? Guys, when someone gives you a pinch, what do you think? What hurts? Your nefesh hurts or your flesh hurts?
Flesh.
Flesh doesn't hurt. Flesh doesn't feel. The flesh is a piece of flesh. Our soul goes into the body, and our soul gets affected by the body because our soul unites itself with the body. It's not like a driver with a car, that the driver is driving in the car. The body and the soul become one.
Oh, the car doesn't feel anything if it gets hit, but you feel it.
Exactly. If the car gets hit, you don't feel it. So that's the whole idea of here in the Maimer, that God unites himself by choice. God unites himself with the world. God unites himself with the world of Atzilus. And therefore, guys, what's the conclusion of this Maimer? The conclusion of the Maimer is that you could get to know God himself. Not only that there is a God that created the world, you could literally get to know the personality of God from the world. You see, water is a manifestation of God's love. Because God is a loving God, like we read yesterday in chapter 8 in the second volume in Tanya. So you can get to know God from the world. The Chassidus always says that that Abraham announced Vayikra Sham, and he called over there B'Shem Hashem Keil Olam, God world. It doesn't say God of the world, Keil HaOlam. It says God world.
בוקר טוב.
בוקר טוב, באמצע ללמוד משהו דחוף.
כולם יושבים שם.
באיזה חדר אמרו לך לעשות היום?
חדר השני מצד ימין. כולם יושבים, כל החדרים.
לא, זה לא השאלה. השאלה אם אמרו להם. השאלה אם אמרו להם.
ציינתי גם עם יעקב וגם עם אריה.
כנראה שהוא לא אמר להם. נצטרך...
הוא אמר לי, שלח לי בוואטסאפ, גם לא שלח.
אז כנראה שהיה איזושהי תקלה. אז בינתיים אם אפשר עם הברכונים, המתקן הברכונים, לטפל בזה.
עוד לא סידרתי, עוד לא הדבקתי אותו.
נו, אז תדביק. עכשיו יש לך זמן להדביק.
אני עובד עכשיו, מה?
אבל אתה לא יכול לעבוד בגלל ששם נמצאים
טוב,
אנשים.
זה עכשיו אני אעשה, בסדר.
זה זכות גדולה, ככה בזכות זה יותר בחורים יברכו ברכת המזון. טוב, אנחנו באמצע השיעור, וגם מאות אנשים מסתכלים על זה. אני צוחק, לא מאות אנשים, no one is... I told it hundreds of people, זה סתם צוחק. יום טוב, תודה רבה לך יעקב. לא יעקב, אברהם.
Close. No, this is
It's a problem. Guys, everybody on YouTube, like even, like I don't know, when you're going to see this, there's no, I couldn't figure out a pause button. Oh, I just found the mute microphone button.
Wow.
But
Where'd the sound go? Should be popped up.
okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Where are we up to? Oh, so what do we say? We said that it says it says that God, Abraham announced Kel Olam, God world. He didn't announce God of the world. God world. What did he teach all the people? That God and the world are one. What do you mean God of the world? So it's some Buddhist type of, I don't know what, God, the world is God. No. It means that God is God, the world is a manifestation. You could look at a view two different ways. You could look at a beautiful view and say, wow, what a beautiful view God created. Or you could look at the view and say, how beautiful God is. Because the world is a manifestation of God. Let's go. So what are we saying? That the soul becomes one. Let me try to explain this a bit more, because this is something that is pretty common in Chassidus. Because like some of you said that the apple hurts. I want to know something. A person, how do we think? With our brain, right? So let's say you're a mathematician, and someone decides to do lobotomy, take out your brain. So do you think there's actual numbers in the brain? No. So how do we think? With our soul. We think with our soul. We use the vessel of the brain. The brain is the tool through which we think. Right? Now, if someone will give me a hit in the head, will I be able to think? No. It'll be very hard to think. Why? Because he shook up the vessel. It's just like software with hardware, those of you that are techie. What works? The software or the hardware? Both work, but who does the Excel calculation?
Software.
It's the software. It uses the hardware as a tool. Therefore, if you shatter the hardware, it can't work. That's a certain type of integration together, where everything is really the software, but it uses the hardware. That's the soul in the body. Unfortunately, we're going today to a funeral. Yeah. So you think about it, like, what's the difference between a living person and a non-living person? The same body. It's simply the body becomes so weak that, so to say, the soul is not connected to the body anymore. The soul continues living. It's not like it's like a whole thing. Religious people think that the soul continues living. I think it's very simple. Even when a person is alive, it's not their body. When their body doing something is like saying a computer does something. It's the formula that you give it, but it just uses the body. The only thing is, it doesn't use it like a person uses a car. It really, really becomes very integrated. To the extent, if you're sad, your body is going to become sick. What?
There's a word for it. I'm trying to.
What? Which word? Which word is
a special word for integration between the two.
body and the soul?
Synthesis.
Yeah, what's it called?
Synthesis.
Yeah, like a synthesis.
Synthesis, symbiotic.
Like a symbiotic synthesis. Like it's like two
Or
different
even,
things
you know,
become one.
I thought you looked at the word that when the body feels the soul, it's called somatic.
Somatic.
Yeah, somatic experience.
Yes, S-O.
SOMATIC.
Yes.
Somatic experience.
That's the one I was looking for.
Oh, yeah, I thought that's. This is like alternative medicine. It's the body. All the things, trauma, the parts of your body that hurt. You understand? It's something psychological. Why? Because the body and the soul really unite itself together. And that is, again, the idea of the 10 Sfirot, where God becomes one with them. And now you could call God the wise, the loving, the compassionate, because God actually becomes that. This mimer makes the world
seem more united.
Yeah, this mimer makes Rabbi Moss he's my uncle. He used to run over here at the yeshiva. You still remember Amos? He was a very deep Hasidic thinker. Like he still, but when he used to run the yeshiva, he used to learn Ayin Beis. He once told me such a good line. He said that Ayin Beis is like a very deep Chassidus. He said, Ayin Beis talks about these types of things. He said, the Rebbe Rashab is trying to blur the line between God and the world. When you learn Chassidus and you start seeing the world it's a manifestation of God. Automatically, what happens to you is you're looking for the godliness of things.
Start seeing technicolor, as you
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, like a scientist sees science in everything. A psychologist sees psychology in everything. A chassid sees the godliness in everything. And automatically, this is what you're drawn to, right? A kid doesn't understand the difference between... A kid doesn't understand worth. Idea of worth, he doesn't understand. That's why there's a very old famous trick. How do you get out a $100 bill from a child?
Ask your dog, not you will.
No, that's similar. Why should I give you a regular?
Just find something they want and just switch it.
That's right. But I have a very good trick that really works. Give him 3 monies: a quarter, a dime, and a nickel.
Wow.
Okay, you want to be very generous. A quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny.
Wow.
Now you tell him, listen, you give me 1 money, I give you 4 money. And it's like real money. It's not paper, it's metal.
Yeah.
Oh. What happens? Why can't you do it to an adult?
Because he knows the worth of the...
Because he doesn't look at the dollar. He looks for the monetary value,
what he can get
behind the dollar. When you're a chassid and you start looking for the, so to say, divine value behind things, automatically you'll be drawn to a Gemara more than to a burger. Nothing wrong with burgers. We're not fighting burgers. I don't know. Steak, I don't know. It's that we love, right? Me included. But the more you start appreciating divine worth or divinity, automatically, just like you want to have a good car, you want to have a good pair of tefillin, a good mezuzah, a really kosher lulav or esrog,
Yes, sir.
really kosher food. You know, like people ask about kashrus. What's the big deal? It's also kosher. Why do you need the best kashrus? It's also kosher. Why do you want the best car? The Pontiac fancy places. Or this is something that I wasn't aware of, but I remember 15 years ago or 18 years ago. I don't remember how long ago. Very long ago. I worked over here in Mayanot, and on the way up north, I put on a tape of Chassidish Egunim on the bus. Guys told me, please turn it off. Like, we're not talking about now, there's already Chassidish Egunim with good music. Back then it was a Chassid singing, and I loved it. And the guy over there in the back says, Rabbi, please turn it off. I said, oh, what do you want? You don't like it. Don't listen to this. Rabbi, if you don't turn it off, please get me off the bus. I can't hear this. Little did I know that people that have a sense of music have sensitive ears.
Yes.
And they appreciate good music, and they cannot listen to bad music. The same is with food. People that have a good palate can't stand bad food. Or people that are very poor, doesn't want them to eat food that is not so fresh. If you are spiritually sensitive, you will want the best kashrus, best supervision. One of the ways of becoming spiritually sensitive is to make sure to eat the most kosher food. One of the ways to become more musical is to listen to good music. When you start listening to good music, you can't listen afterwards to bad music.
Very true.
How did we get to all this? Because we're trying to say that once you understand that the world is all godliness, it's all an expression of God, and not only that it's an expression that there is a God. I'm sorry, I know I pointed it out already 3 times now, but today, but I want you to understand there's a big difference. There's Kel Olam. It's not that there is a God. Once there is an expression once you understand that the world is merely an expression of God, you slowly will be drawn to find the divinity within things. And that changes also, by the way, the whole perspective about fighting with the Yetzer Hara. In other schools of thought, there's like a lot of talk about fighting with the Yetzer Hara, fighting. I want to ask you a question. Do you remember the day that you had to make your fight to stop playing with monopoly money and you should start loving real money? Yeah, you don't remember that day? Because I actually recall I had to make a achlata. I had to make a resolution. No more monopoly money. And now when I couldn't hold myself back, I went back to my addictions and I closed the door, I got under my cover, and I wanted to make sure that my father and mother don't see me, and I took out my monopoly money, and then I had to promise myself, and I had to start counting days, and 1 day clean, 2 days clean, I'm already a week clean.
Wow.
No more monopoly money. Barely, even now, from time to time, I'm so drawn to monopoly money. Everybody understands what I'm saying is ridiculous. Why? Because if you mature, monopoly money doesn't talk to you anymore. Monopoly money doesn't.
It doesn't have no worth.
You're not drawn to it because you matured. What Chassidus is trying to do to us is to make us a tiny bit more mature. When you're more mature, and you have the ability now to watch another YouTube video or to learn another Mishnah, easier said than done. I'm not the one preaching. I'm talking to myself. But that's what Chassidus wants to do. That's the idea of Chassidus Chabad. Chassidus Chabad is not like telling you fight the Torah. This no. Become a tiny bit more mature. Become a bit more divine.
Choice. That's interesting. You're right. It's like,
You never made a choice to drop a monopoly money, right?
and that's the ideal way to not do something. It just naturally like dissipates. You're drawn towards real money.
Right,
drawn
but you have to develop appreciation for monetary worth.
It wasn't monopoly money from his chess.
Oh my gosh.
Chess is still
It's good,
chess is good.
but I was dreaming chess. I used to play a lot of chess, but then I came to a moment I was just dreaming chess all the time. So I can't dream chess anymore.
But yeah, it's like when someone tells you to abstain from something, don't do this. It's like it's bad for you. It's Tahara. Get down. That's not that isn't a natural. That doesn't spawn naturally. It's very tumultuous. Like so, that's good.
Okay, guys, this mimer is a long mimer. A lot of the concepts over here in this mimer I mentioned in the other classes. This class is in the morning, is not a textual class. Tonight in the Chassidus Club, we're going to learn the mimer inside. So it's going to be less talking and more covering ground. But in the morning, we're more into the talking part in order to learn the essentials of Chassidus before you're kicked out of this class and you move up to higher classes of Chassidus. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Meaningful davening. Unfortunately, we're going to a funeral today. Don't buy into the whole idea of death, guys. Death is not so godly. But unfortunately, we're still in Golos. That's why there's still an idea of death. But very soon it's going to be outdated because Mashiach is going to come. It's actually like the end of the old fashion before the new fad. And in general, yeah. Mashiach should come already where there's going to be, the Pasuk says, Bila Ha'movis L'Netzach, and God will, and the death will be swallowed for eternity. U'macha Hashem dimam al kol panim, and Hashem will wipe off the tears from everyone's eyes. Speedily in our days, Mekarev Mamish.